you that have never been done before.
We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route to do. We the people are free. And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited.
Well, g'day, folks. How are you? This very, very fine sort of a Friday, and good luck to you. I hope you're going to have a nice weekend. If you plan some getaway with the family or something, I hope it is spectacular for you. It's going to be a bit of a weird one tonight. I haven't had a lot of time to put things together. I've been running around doing a few things here today, and while there is a great lot of noise coming out of US mainstream media about Donald Trump's meeting with Vladimir Putin that will happen overnight or early tomorrow morning, our time, in Alaska, in Anchorage, Alaska, the cranky things, the insane things that the US mainstream media is alluding to that will happen if Putin and Trump decide one set of circumstances, or what if they decide on a second set of circumstances? And a lot of them, particularly the leftist media, seem to be screaming at the moment that Zelensky hasn't been involved or invited to be involved in these talks in any way, shape or form, indicating that America is going to carve up Ukraine with Russia, and that'll be that. Well, if that is the case, that'd probably be a win for the world to begin with. I think Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump are on the same page when it comes to Ukraine. I just don't think NATO have figured that out yet, much less Zelensky, although, let's be honest, the guy is a comedian. And I don't mean that insultingly. I mean that as a profession. That's what he is. There is plenty of history, and you can go and check it out on YouTube, of his comedic past. He used to do the Russian version of Saturday Night Live, if you like. In fact, there's a great video I think I played once of him playing the piano with his penis. Look, we all do things in our younger years, don't we? Not many of us grow up to be national leaders afterwards, but they picked that one. And now he doesn't want to have an election so they can unpick him. So, yeah. Why would they be carving up, and how would they carve up Ukraine? Well, I would say the Donetsk region is definitely going back to full Russian control, because Ukraine, this is how this whole shit started in the first place, Ukraine was ethnically cleansing that region of all the Russians. That's going to go back regardless, I think, to Russian control. So the border will be pushed back there. It remains to be seen how much further the borders might be pushed back. They could be totally pushed back and Ukraine incorporated back into Mother Russia again. I don't think that will happen. Don't think that's on the cards. But they're not going to be allowed to go back to the way it was, beating up on the folks in the Donetsk region and getting away with it. Just won't happen. So there's talk of a certain corridor that will be formed that will allow the Russians to maintain a certain level of security for Mother Russia, while in fact being able to inflict a great deal of damage to Ukraine should they fire up again in some stupid way because some dick in NATO decides it's time we had another war. And they're not finished with the last one yet. The big problem that Ukraine has, and NATO has, in this whole argument is that America has basically been the one supplying the weapons to do the fighting. I mean, the French have thrown a few things in, the Germans have thrown a bit in, but nobody has the missiles on the scale of America. And America aren't sending them to Donetsk anymore. They're now down to their reserves. That means they only have enough missiles left to protect Mother America, not anywhere else in the world. So Trump isn't handing those out willy-nilly. And if he was going to do a deal with NATO, it would be done. There would be a World War III already happening. They would have given those sorts of missiles with the capability to travel thousands of kilometers to the Ukrainians/NATO, who would have used American technology, American satellites to target whatever they were going to target, including most likely the Kremlin, and fire at them. you can be guaranteed that's what would have happened. And that was what a lot of supposed centrist American politicians on the Republican side were praying and hoping for. And what do they call them? The neocons. Lindsey Graham being the foremost of those, who is currently serving. But I've now found out there's another one who's now the ambassador to Israel, who's decided to pop his head up out of the rabbit hole there and exclaim how shocked and appalled America is, disgusted in certain circumstances, in fact, that, or in certain circles, that Australia has decided to go with, I think it's 140 odd countries around the world that do or will recognize a Palestinian state. Now, this has no doubt made the Americans very, very unhappy. Very, very unhappy. But what does it mean going forward? Well, Trump held a press conference a couple of days ago. I'm just trying to see if I have it here. I thought I did. This might be it. This was a press conference. I'm not quite sure.
Like, you think they can take out anybody right now?
That's not that one. Can't have it here. Maybe if I go back and have a look into yesterday's little folder, I'll try and drag it in. Trump had a press conference that he very clearly stated that he was taking DC, but federalizing DC. But he also, I think it was same day, but slightly later press conference, he was asked about Gaza. Now, bear in mind, we're talking about the Palestinian state here, and Australia is going to recognize the Palestinian state, or the right for the Palestinians to have a state. Listen closely to
Mr.
this.
President, how do you know that the Palestinians don't want to leave their land? Some people say this is ethnic cleansing. You won't be able to force them to leave their land. They stay
We're moving
there.
them to a beautiful location where they have new homes, where they can live safely, where they'll have
But they want to
doctors
leave,
and
sir.
medical and all of those things, and I think it's going to be great. Yeah, any questions?
You said
Are you
before that
putting in
the
charge
U.S.
of it?
would buy Gaza, and today you just said we're not going to buy Gaza.
We're not going to have to buy. We're going to have Gaza. We don't have to buy. There's nothing to buy. We will have Gaza.
What does that mean?
No reason to buy. There is nothing to buy. It's Gaza. It's a war-torn area. We're going to take it. We're going to hold it. We're going to cherish it.
And Mr. President, take it under what authority? It is sovereign territory.
Under the U.S. authority.
Under the U.S. authority. We're going to take Gaza. Gaza is currently, in part, the Palestinians' home. Palestine, if you go and look at maps prior to 1943, is much larger than it currently is. Israel takes up a large part of Palestine these days. And if you listen closely to what Donald Trump said there, he said, we're going to move them. Because there's nothing in Gaza. There's nothing in Gaza because it's been bombed beyond recognition. The Israelis are moving in to fully take control of Gaza. Their parliament has approved new laws to do so. I don't know if they've rolled the tanks across the border yet, but you can be guaranteed they will in the very, very near future. Now, why? Well, so Donald Trump can move them out of Gaza and put them into a beautiful new place. We're moving them, you heard him say, to a beautiful new place. Listen
Mr.
again.
President, how do you know that the Palestinians don't want to leave their land? Some people say this is ethnic cleansing. You won't be able to force them to leave their land. They stay
We're moving
there.
them to a beautiful location where they have new homes, where they can live safely, where they'll have
But they want to
doctors
leave,
and
sir.
medical and all.
Doesn't it sound wonderful? We're going to move them to a new area with new homes. They'll have beautiful amenities. They'll be safe. So can we assume they're not going to be anywhere near Israel? Okay. Where are they going to move them to? Nobody asked that in the press conference. Where are they going to move them to? They did ask under whose authority were you going to take Gaza? And notice it was the we. We don't have to. We don't have to pay. We don't have to do this. We don't have to do the other. So far, it's Israel doing a lot of the shooting and America supplying a lot of the bullets and the weapons. So it's a we operation. We, America and Israel, are going to move Gazans out of Gaza. Why? Because it's a shithole. It's a bombed shithole. There's nothing worth buying. You're hearing it from the man himself. There's nothing worth buying. Why would we pay money for something? And who would you pay that money to? Hamas? Exactly how would they buy Gaza? They have no intentions of building on it. They're going to dig it up. They're going to turn it into a huge trench and fill it full of friggin' water, is what they're going to do. Be guaranteed of it. Why? Because the Suez Canal will be shut to Israel very soon, and they can't afford that. They need access to the sea. And the easiest way to do that is to build a bloody great dam straight through Gaza. But where are they going to move these people to? Where is America moving? Greenland? Now, there's a thought. You know, there's only 50,000 people living in Greenland. America's making a play for Greenland, has for a little while now. In fact, I wonder whether or not Putin and Trump will be discussing that in Anchorage overnight. That would be a topic of discussion I'd be very keen to be a fly on the wall too. Given America has their early warning systems based there and Russia have theirs not too far away. That's basically because Russia isn't too far away. So, I think it would be a very interesting conversation. But where the hell are they going to move these people to? Do you think they're going to put them into the UN, into the refugee system there? And how many of them are going to wind up back here in Australia, do you think? Which sort of leads me, in a roundabout kind of way, to the big event happening on August the 31st. But before we get into talking about that, I should get into the chat and just see who's saying what. Thank you, folks, if you've been involved in our lottery already, as I scroll my way back up to the top to see who was in first. Just having a bit of a look at the moment, we've got 82 tickets, so 83 tickets left to sell in draw number 4. So, folks, if you've got $2 and you haven't already bought 20 tickets, then please go to merch.vofhq.com, spend $2 and clean up those last 80-odd tickets, and we will get draw number 4. One of you will pick up $750. The Donkey Sanctuary will get some money. We'll pay a few bills here, and we might be able to help some other people out along the way. Then we'll kick off with draw number 5, which has these magnificent cash dollars up for grabs, another $750. But as a second prize, or a second draw, if you like, we'll be pulling out 1 gram of Ainsley bullion gold that's been donated by followers of this show. So can't thank them enough. They want to give you the opportunity to get a little taste of the gold, so to speak. So that is draw number 5, but we can't get into that until this one's wrapped up. Please go and check it out now. And do that at merch.vofhq.com. $2 is all the ticket takes. You can only buy a maximum of 20. We've only got 80 of them left. That'll be great. Silver today, $58.49 is the current price, with gold having dropped a little bit. It's 5,131 at the moment and a few cents. I was reading the Ainsley newsletter today. That was interesting reading if you're not already hooked up to it and you want to follow and get some bit of an idea and some analysis of the markets, then that Ainsley newsletter is a great thing to get. Can I just tell you? Ainsley Analytics, who put out little videos and all that sort of stuff with Chris Tipper, the information that they have access to is really staggering, even for somebody like me who's not that deeply into it. But even now, I can sort of look at the market and see what things are doing. And not that I'm invested in it heavily in any which way, shape or form, but I know people who are, and I feel very good for those folks who have the ability to go in, spend a bit of money, buy, even if it's only an ounce now and then. You are still stacking. Just keep stacking, folks, because the news on stacking is going to get good. What the first in the room tonight? Sorry, it was a bit late tonight. Due to the nature of the day, I didn't get home till late, and I actually didn't set the show up until just after 6 o'clock, I don't think. I was on the phone to Beck Freedom, who we will talk much more about in the near future. Thank you so much, Aussie Sue. God love you. And I saw your post today. Look out, woman. You're a wild one on that island, and you've you've put a poster above your head. Look out. But good luck with you, yourself, and I, so to speak. G'day, Margot. Tony. Love to see you, brother. Spaz is in the house too. Good on you, brother. Donna. Pete. We've been talking to Pete today. He's a great man. And in fact, he has sent me through the dickhead of the day, who we will speak about a little later on in the show. G'day, Alan. I hope you're doing all right, Harm. Port Macquarie is treating you good. And who else we got floating around? G'day, Paul. Nice to have you in. Fern, lovely to see you. Haven't seen you in a little while. And the lovely Margot, of course. Katrina, there's so many of you. I'm just trying to scroll through quickly. King Duck, hang on. What are you? Am I the only one that wants to see you chatting with Bergwerf again, or has Bosie recruited him? Well, B1 and B2 are okay. Well, yeah, we can talk about this. Well, let's start off with Bergie. I should have called him. He could have been on tonight if he wasn't busy. We have had a couple of chats over the last couple of weeks. What do I say here? Darren will come on quite happily. Darren has a lot on his plate at the moment, and I don't want to be a distraction for him in that regard. He's got some personal issues he needs to look after. My place is also something that he's obviously been very, very involved with right from the outset, being the instigator of it all. It's growing in different ways at the moment, so it's hard for him to keep a finger in what's going on with that and keep himself in line with what he has to do personally at the moment. So I think at the moment he's just finding his feet. And yes, I'll have him on the show. In fact, I'll attempt to have him on the show next week to make you happy, King Duck. As for B1 and B2, B1 and B2 are, well, entirely possible we could do it. And maybe I'll aim for that next Friday. I'm not exactly sure where B2 will be. B2 has got himself a job back in the geology world, and so finds himself standing in the middle of vast open spaces holding a stick on a regular basis. Unfortunately, those vast open spaces don't necessarily have any kind of phone coverage. So getting B2 really does come down to him either being at home when he's working, or being back in Sydney, or possibly up at B1's for a bit of a break. I know he has popped up once or twice. But B1, on the other hand, is run off his nuts, from what I can hear. If you're unsure of who I'm talking about, B1 and B2, I'm talking about the Galactic Larrikins. They are, well, B1, Bradford, is, and his mum or his family bought a B&B up at, or a B&B if you like, an Airbnb up at Mullaney on the Sunshine Coast in the hinterland. They have, I think, 5 different residences that people can hire out and stay from, overnight to a week or 2 weeks or whatever you want to stay. One of those is a couple of renovated old train carriages. And I think B1 and B2 did the renovation and took it back to an 1800s period style. I've seen the photos. I think we showed them here. But to be honest, catching B1 and B2 is very difficult time-wise. And at this time of the night, I've got the sneaking suspicion that Bradford in particular has got his head down. But I haven't spoken to particularly Bradford in a little while. So, all right, I'll be onto it over the weekend. I've also made overtures towards Bob. Now, Bob's had some health issues, up and down. He's also changed jobs, so I haven't wanted to hassle him too much. He's working different hours, so our hookup times have to be a little bit more... it takes a little bit more time to organise them, so to speak. So we'll sort that out, but Bob will be returning, have absolutely no fear. And if there are others that I've spoken to who you haven't seen in a while, then we would love to see that too. Katrina, love what you're saying here. Ukraine was a Khazarian Mafia Zionist Jew stronghold. I've been doing a little bit of research in the last few days about World War II and Hitler's persecution of the Jews. Now, there's some very interesting facts that are very conveniently looked over. And I'm not trying to excuse what happened under Nazi rule in World War II in any way. What I am finding with this research, the numbers don't stack up. And I'll just give you one because it's something I'm working on and we'll do a much more in-depth look at later on. But I'll give you just a couple of numbers now to make you think. In 1933, when Hitler came to power, the predominant religion in Germany was Christianity. And of all the Christian denominations that you could be in Germany, Lutheran was by far the most popular, by far, with like 80% of the population, followed by Catholicism, was the only other really registered Christian religion in Germany at the time. There were a number of practicing Jews in Germany at the time, 500,000. That number's important, 500,000. Now, aside from the control the vast majority of those 500,000 Jewish folks exercised over commerce and the economy of Germany, that's a different matter. From 1933, Hitler started introducing restrictions on Jewish ownership of business. From 1935, he introduced a law that meant Jews couldn't marry Aryans or Germans, and really started persecuting Jewish people in earnest when he invaded Poland and cleaned out the Polish ghettos. Now, I've gone through and I've had a look at the numbers for all the German death camps. And then I've had a look at the revised numbers for all the German death camps. And Auschwitz is just one example I'll give you. The initial quotes that the world was led to believe of Jews that died in Auschwitz. Now, remember, I'm saying Jews that died in Auschwitz was 4 million. That's in one death camp, Auschwitz, 4 million. Now, it took until the late 90s, the late 1990s, for proper research to actually be done and figure out that there could not have been any more than 1.1 million people killed at Auschwitz. It could not have been any more than 1.1 million. And of the 1.1 million, the vast majority of them were Jewish, but there were a large number, a significant number, over 200,000, that weren't Jewish and were given the same fate. So by the end of the war, we're saying that now the revised figures are 4 million Jews killed in the war, rather than 4 million just killed in Auschwitz. Even those figures are a little bit rubbery. However, let's take that as it is, 4 million Jews. There were 6.5 million German citizens killed in the Second World War. There were, I do have these numbers here, I shouldn't be doing them off the back of my head. There were 24 million Russians killed in the Second World War. There were 18 million Chinese killed in the Second World War, predominantly by the Japanese. In Poland, I think there were, I seem to have made an error there, 5.9 million people died in Poland, 31 million in Japan, 21 million in India, 17 million in Yugoslavia, 10 million in the Philippines, 8.5 million in Romania, 5.8 million in Hungary. You get the idea. In Italy, 4.5 million. The United Kingdom, about the same. The United States, 418,000. There's a reason for that. So, Australia, we lost 38,000. Czechoslovakia, 34. So, Australia lost 40,000, I beg your pardon. Austria lost 38. 3.8 million. The decimal points are in the wrong place here. I've just got to try and figure it out as I go along. So you get the idea. There are a lot of citizens murdered in the Second World War. There is no doubt that Hitler's task force groups that were sent out into the countryside murdered indiscriminately, particularly in Russia at the time. There were nearly 2 million people executed and thrown into holes on the sides of roads, if there was a hole to throw them in. In many cases, they just left them where they shot them. Now, a lot of those people have been attributed to as Jews as well. When you go back and look at where the biggest massacres happened, the biggest Nazi massacres of Jews happened, interestingly, you find that they happened in Ukraine. I'll just let that sit with you. Have a think about that for a minute. And when you know the premise of why Hitler was fighting back against the Jews of Germany, view what happened when he started hunting them, so to speak, where he went. Hungary, Romania, Czechoslovakia, Ukraine. And by far, the largest losses were in Russia. In those areas of Russia that have now been excised back out into little places like Belarus and Ukraine and myriad others. I think it's just interesting. None of the numbers seem to add up. These figures would indicate that in 1933 there were 500,000 practicing Jews in Germany. And we're trying to be told now that there were, let's be conservative and say 1.5 million Jews that moved to Germany from 1933 to 1939 at a period of time where Hitler was actively oppressing the Jews in Germany, restricting them, hounding them, not killing them yet, but making life extremely difficult. The numbers don't add up. I'm not a numbers bloke. We've all talked about me and numbers. I'm not a numbers bloke, so feel free to tell me I'm a dickhead and I've got it so far wrong, and I will apologize profusely. But I'm struggling with this because the numbers don't add up. Am I the only one that sees that? I'll go down the back here and see whether or not I'm being called a Nazi yet. As it appears many of us are currently, if we happen to have a dissenting view of world history. Oh, God, you're a Nazi lover. Well, my surname is Liebold at the end of the day. So, thank you, Mr. Bill. Even Top Gear did a tour of the camps. I remember that show. Yes. Auschwitz in particular has had large parts of it rebuilt for historic tourism purposes. So what you're seeing isn't the reality. And in fact, Auschwitz and Birkenau have both been tested. The gas chambers couldn't have held the gas, couldn't have killed the volume of people that they say they killed. Once again, the science and people with much better number skills than me have done the numbers. It don't add up. It don't add up all. And if you go through history, and I have a document here, which I don't think I've shown you yet. It's a very long, involved document, and I've yet to really figure out how best to present it to you. But what it does point out in exquisite detail is every nation in history, dating back to, a few years AD, every nation in history has thrown the Jews out of their nation, barred them from their nation. And at times, multiple countries have done this. They've been thrown out for some years and then somehow they've got back in. They continue to play the games that they play. Usury is one of the greatest tools used by the Zionists. Usury. Outlawed absolutely everywhere, and yet you suffer from it every day. Yeah, especially if you've got a loan. You suffer from it every day. Outlawed in our constitution, usury, and yet you're okay with it because you haven't complained. Go and understand what usury is. And if you don't understand it, you can go and find it in one of our Magna Carta lessons back here in the video stockpile that we have. Usury, learn all about it. Usury is something that was created specifically to be able to take advantage. And they do it so very well. All right, let's... how long have I chatted so far? All right. We better get on to the main reason for chatting this fine evening. The march on August 31. I've been reasonably quiet talking about it for a variety of reasons. And I think I've said there's a lot of things I didn't trust about it. I didn't know who was organising it. The speakers that were going to be standing for it. And as it turns out, there were no planned speakers. It was just going to be rather an organic march that, met somewhere. Everybody had a bit of a picnic, had a good chat, patted each other on the back and went home. And I'm not against that idea, actually. I quite love that idea, if that's what it would be. I've been fortunate today. In fact, just before I came on air, Beck Freedom called me back and we chatted for maybe 45 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes. A really, really good chat. And it's no secret now that Beck has outed herself as the name on, we call it the leader of the protest, or the leader of the march, if you like, in New South Wales, because she's the one that's applied for the permits to do it. I didn't ask who was running the other states, and frankly, I trust Beck implicitly in that regard. She knows the people that are doing it, and she's comfortable with who they are, and what they stand for. So am I. I'm all good for that. We did talk a lot about the vitriol that has been hurled at her. Avi seems to have taken a bit of a dislike to her, and Rukshan, in fact, even it appears going to a point of sort of not stalking her, but sort of stalking her. It's a bit weird. If Avi turns up at the protest in Melbourne, I think people have a right to ask him a lot of questions. I don't think he'll like being asked them. So maybe the better thing to do is just ignore him, shame them, because I don't think Avi's there to help us. I think Avi will be there to stir things up in his unique manner. And I think there'll be those sorts of people at just about all of these protests, or these marches, because it's ripe for the picking. You've seen how those that generally organise these protests, these marches in this country have reacted with horror, and with a speedy second march in September that'll be for the right reasons, because immigration isn't the right reason to march. It's, racist. Immigration is a word. That's all. It's a word. And you can't blame the immigrant for the immigration, can you? Can you blame the immigrant for wanting to come here? So, getting enraged at the immigrants who have taken the opportunity to come to this country isn't going to help. And I'm sure that wasn't the plan with Beck and others going forward for this march. That was never the plan. The plan was to be very inclusive about all of this, but to show that in Australia, we're at a point where we can't look after our own, and the government seem to be the ones opening the doors, continually opening them wider. Now, it's an unfortunate state of affairs that the people who come through those doors and wind up on our streets may get a little bit of abuse from those Aussies who have been forced to do it as tough as they have over the last 4 years, 10 years, 20 years, however long. Those immigrants can't do anything about it. They have simply been offered an opportunity which, in their country, they must be very fortunate to be able to get. And Australia, being the good place that we are, our government successively, flavours don't matter here. Our governments successively have wanted to do the right thing by these folks. Give them a bit of a helping hand. Give them a head start. And unfortunately now, with Labor in power and, heady with that power, we're overextending. And we're overextending in ways that I don't think the country is able to take. So this march ostensibly was to, I think, make the government aware that the people are not happy with the decisions that you're making regarding immigration. It's not to persecute any particular group that is taking advantage of what our weak and pathetic Labor government is doing. It could be a weak and pathetic Liberal government. It would make no difference. It would still be happening. Why? Because the foreign corporation that owns these bastards want it to happen. And Australians, God love us, we are just going to keep funding it. Now, how much do we fund it? Well, if you're an Indian and you'd like to come to Australia, and I'm just going to say Indian here because I've got an Indian, but I get the feeling that you could be a student in a number of countries around the world and you would still be invited to come to this country.
From India at the moment, the government is paying you $23,000 for university fees.
Yeah, 23,000 university fees is a group 8 University of Queensland, my university.
University of Queensland being paid $23,000 for his education. Just in case you'd missed that bit so far. University of Queensland being paid $23,000 for his education. He's not paying it. He's been paid it to pay to them. Start again.
From India at the moment, the government is paying you $23,000 for university fees.
Yeah, 23,000 university fees is a group 8 University of Queensland, my universities. And
so that's all paid. You're getting $23,000.
23 is university fees. Or completely is 50, but differently is 23 is university fees, 15,000 to embassy, and other is my personal expense of like clothes, tickets, air tickets, and other ones.
So did you get that? The 23,000 goes to the university. Another 15,000 goes to the university to organise his visa. It's a bloody expensive student visa, I would have thought, at $15,000. But that goes to the university. And whatever's left over, he gets to use to fly himself to Australia and home again, presumably, and have a little bit of money in his pocket when he hits our shores. Of course, he'll get a job, a part-time job here. He'll start driving Uber, or he'll go to a 7-Eleven, or he'll pick up a job, somewhere, because no student in Australia can get away without doing a little bit of that. Although I'm not aware of too many Australian students being paid $50,000 to take up a university course.
23,000 or?
Almost completely I gave to 50,000.
So completely it's 50,000
Australian dollar too.
Australian dollars
Yeah.
to you personally.
Yeah.
And we're wondering why all the Australian people are homeless.
I don't know this process, but I'm happy to have.
So to come to
I don't know this process. Australians homeless. I don't know this process, but I'm happy to have. He doesn't understand or know the homeless process here in Australia. He doesn't understand the impact it's having on Australian streets because he's a student. He'll be, in part, that $23,000 and the $15,000 that the university are getting will in part be for a bedroom somewhere on campus, more than likely. So he'll be insulated from any of those issues of trying to find a house. It'll only strike him as hard if he tries to get off the university campus and goes and tries to, get a place somewhere, or get a house of his own somewhere, or an apartment somewhere. And then he'll become aware of just how difficult the rental market is. But by that time, out of his $50,000, which the university will very happily have taken $38,000 with, he will have paid, let's say, $2,000 for his return airfares, maybe to India. He'll have 10 grand in his pocket, which will, help him get his way through meals and whatnot for the first semester or two until he gets a job. Now, I don't begrudge the kid. I don't begrudge any Indian for taking up the offer. Why the hell wouldn't you, given where you come from? I'm just amazed we're offering it. Now, that's one student from one country. How many of those students are here this year? How many were here last year on that basis and the year before when they reopened the universities to international students after the spicy cough? How much HEX debt is your child being lumbered with to go through and get a degree at the same university this kid's going to? How much have you, as mum and dad, had to fork out to get your kid into a university? Or are you fortunate enough to gain some form of grant like that kid is? So on August 31st, you don't want to go and protest that kid, all right? He's not the enemy. The enemy is the government who allowed that, enables that, continues that to happen. Now, the universities will argue, oh, we've had money taken off us from government for so many times. We've got to have money to do, lab research and do this and pay for that and do the other and yada, yada, yada. Oh, yeah. Well, universities do an awful lot of fundraising themselves. But now they've seen a business model that allows them to attract overseas students and provide the funding from the Australian taxpayer pocket to do it. Now, I don't know if the universities came up with this idea or somebody in the governments did, but it's not sustainable anymore. That's what you need to get up and protest about. That's what you need to get up and walk for. It's not the kid who's the fortunate beneficiary of the Australian government's lack of respect for the Australian people. It is the Australian government who deserves your ire. I think in some places coming up on August 31st, there is a very large chance that the process will be hijacked by people who will want to target the beneficiary rather than the instigator of the problem. If you're planning to attend one of these marches on August 31st and you have someone like that who wants to target a beneficiary of our government's largesse, tell them to pull their heads in, because they've got the wrong end of the stick. These people are taking an opportunity that is being handed to them by Australian hands. Here is 50,000 Australian dollars from the Australian government to get you to come out to one of our universities. Taking up a place maybe your kid could have got into, but because you didn't have the money that the university wanted to educate your kid, that goes begging. And you still wind up paying for the kid who got the spot. Maybe that's, worth considering if you are planning on going out for these marches. And here are the places to be at. In Sydney, Belmore Park, the Hay Street Haymarket area of Belmore Park, from 12 o'clock. Obviously, all these marches are happening at 12 o'clock. Time to take our country back. It says time to defend our heritage, time to defend our culture. Stop mass immigration now. So as I've said, this isn't about so much the immigrants. This is about the government process. And this should be your way of showing the government that you are not happy, Jan. In Melbourne, it's going to happen in Flinders Street, right in front of Flinders Street Station, right there at the intersection on Swanson Street. It will be a very, very big event, I think, in Melbourne. I think there'll be a lot of people who turn up to it, and I think there'll be a lot of subversives who turn up to it. If you hear a chant of shame, shame, shame coming, join into it, folks. Join into it, even if you're not exactly sure who you're shaming. Trust me, it'll be worthwhile. In Brisbane, Roma Street Parklands is the place for the march on the 31st, so you can make your way in through the Wickham Terrace end, and that's a fairly large Parklands area. Be interesting to see if we could fill it. And in Perth, there's some last-minute negotiations going on, and that will be announced in the near future. So too the Adelaide event, meet at the War Memorial at this point in time. Where it ends from there, it'll be in the Adelaide Parklands, I'm guessing, but worthwhile getting along to that one. And in Canberra, it's a to-be-announced venue yet, but it'll be War Memorial to or from somewhere. So get along to those ones. They're the only ones that I have currently been announced. So Canberra at the War Memorial, Adelaide at the War Memorial, Perth, well, we'll let you know in the next day or so. Brisbane, the Roma Street Parklands, Flinders Street for those folks in Victoria and Melbourne, and in Sydney, Belmore Park, Hay Street in Haymarket. I don't know how big that park is. I want to say it's the one that Darren and I went to with a My Place thing, but I could be wrong. It might be a different part of the world. So Beck Freedom will be coming on the show next week. I did ask her if she'd like to come on tonight, but we both had one of those days, so she wasn't able to sort of commit to tonight, but we'll have another chat on Monday, and depending on what sort of shit she has to go through over the weekend, dare say we'll have a very interesting chat, hopefully Monday night. But if not, it'll be one day next week where she'll come on and give her side of the story. Some of you may have seen a bit of it. She's been popping up on TikTok and Facebook and whatnot, and she is being roundly criticised by some interesting people. I've got to say, this exercise, for somebody like me, has been very informative to watch. All right, it's been very instructive to see who's come out and said what. So if you want to take a little of my advice, sit back, watch who's doing the talking here, watch who is slinging what, and you might find it instructive going further. Now, there has been another march lined up preceding August 31. This one's another one for Palestine. Wasn't the first one enough? Didn't we have estimates of between 100 and 300,000 people crossing the Sydney Harbour Bridge? Wasn't that enough? Why do we need to do it again? It didn't achieve anything the first time. What do you think it's going to do the second time? Well, I think the second one's been put up to beef up the racist argument for August 31. I'd be very careful about the Sydney and Melbourne events particularly. All right? I think you're going to find a lot of infiltrators poking their heads up in those events especially, and Beck and I will talk about that next week when she comes on the show, I hope. So I'm not going to tell you to go or not to go. That's a matter for you. I think everybody has perfect right to make their own decisions. We need to use discernment. That's what it's all about. I know that the intent behind the creation of this march is good. The people who created it have come across unexpected opposition, I think is the best way to possibly describe what's going on. Unexpected opposition, because it's been a lot of people from within our movement who are attacking her. And that's very instructive. Very instructive. What's also instructive is watching how they react. So the usual people who get together and build these national type protests or these national marches, the usual cohorts, I'm sure you know who I'm talking about, have decided they're going to hold a proper march, one that doesn't alienate or segregate Australians, isn't about immigration. They're going to hold that in September. What, the following weekend? So we're going to have another march for Palestine. We're going to have a march for Australia. And then we're going to have the proper march for Australia with the right speakers. Sorry, wrong finger. With the right speakers. That's the intriguing part for me. Got to have speakers at these events. Got to get the right message out. And I'm not shy of saying that was one of my early reservations about the August 31st, who was going to be doing the speaking. Because I look at the people who normally stand up to speak at these events. They don't impress me in any way, shape, or form because they're politicians. And if it's not a politician to your face standing up and talking to you, it's one who wants to play politics in the background. The only place for the current politics in this whole argument is to remove the politicians. The only solution. Remove the politicians. Simple. They're the ones inflicting us with laws like these wide open immigration rules that are now going to be twisted and turned into some sort of racist argument. We are a Western Christian democracy. When will you understand what that truly means? That's the key. You need to understand what it truly means. So, August 31st, up to you. Your judgment. We will talk, obviously, with Beck Freedom in the lead up to it, and I support Beck. I will always support Beck. Beck goes in with eyes wide open. She goes in with an open heart, and sometimes is taken advantage of. And that is because she has such a great desire to want to help us. I don't believe there is any ego in Beck Freedom that wants to have her, front and center in spotlight. That's not her. But she's a bit of a mover and shaker behind the scenes. She's good at getting people together and good at getting them to talk. This is a person we want in what we do because there isn't enough of them who can do what she does. So she's got my support, 100%. And if she needs me for whatever reason to do something for this thing in Brisbane, then I'll go along and help. At the moment, my only thoughts about going along are to film you, to film the people who go along, and maybe catch the ones who want to do the wrong thing. That's the only reason I'm really thinking of going at the moment, to try and catch the people who want to do the wrong thing. Because with that evidence, we can expose it going forward. We can make sure and give you ways to shut it down when it happens near you. Because we are not going. This won't be the last protest. This won't be the last march. And there might be a march in the not too distant future that I do get behind 100%. You will see me standing out the front of. And if they need me to put my name on a piece of paper so that we get permission to do it, then I'll put my name on that piece of paper. But that's after the 31st. Let's see what happens here, because I know the sentiment, the intent, and everything else in the setup of this has been nothing but love and nothing but a desire for the Australian population to come together and express the fact that we are unhappy, not with the immigrants coming through the gate, but with the government who opened the gate and continues to open it wider. And that's sort of where I'm at for tonight. I hope you folks have a wonderful weekend. Thankfully, many people who were driving today in South Australia are lucky enough to get home tonight, because there was I suppose there were many issues, but today in South Australia, one of those issues was this semi-trailer. Now you can see there he's crossed not over only the white line on his side of the road, he's crossed over the one on the other side of the road. The gap between those two white lines is 1 metre. And that transit van that you can see coming towards us in the frame, that one wound up off the road in the dirt. Now this truck, well, we can show you. This came from Pete from Pinaroo, just between you, me and the gatepost. It was taken on the Dukes Highway between Bordertown and Canalpin, and it was a guy in a tow truck following this. He rang South Australian Police at Bordertown and reported that this truck was doing wild, outrageous things on the road and speeding, doing 115 kilometres an hour. It is carrying a load of steel. Steel, big, heavy plates of steel, rolls of steel, tubes, bloody huge. Anyway, this tow truck rode that semi all the way to Tailem Bend, to the OTR, which is a BP, if you like, at Tailem Bend, right beside the racetrack there, and pulled in and blocked the driver in, got out and had a word to the driver, who turned out to be a subcontinent import driver, who was very, very sorry. He's very tired and he was very sorry, and all he kept doing was saying he was sorry. Nobody cared about his apologies. The fact was he'd sideswiped one four-wheel drive, taken a mirror off it, and 5 cars had wound up in the dirt because of his driving between Bordertown and Tailem Bend. Now, that's a distance, it's a good 1.5 hour, maybe more drive, 2-hour drive at 100 kilometres an hour. And normally one of the most policed roads in the country. You wouldn't want to be speeding on it. Not a copper in sight. And obviously reported at Bordertown by this tow truck driver, drove for another 2 hours behind this truck. No signs of coppers, no coppers coming out. But they did pull up eventually at the OTR and found him there. Now, they might still be talking to him as we go to air. They might. I'm going to be very interested to find out whether or not they let him go and whether or not he was allowed back into the vehicle to drive, or whether or not his license was going to be taken off him there and then. There was dash cam evidence, so certainly the police would have no problem in writing up a sheath of charges, I wouldn't think, all of which would add up to a points total of go home, mate, you ain't got a license anymore. But as I told you in previous shows, some of these people driving these heavy vehicles are imported into the country simply to do the jobs in the fastest possible time, paying no attention to the road rules whatsoever. They will do a run that goes from Sydney to Perth and get put on a plane in Perth back home again because they've blown all their license points on the way over. Single-use drivers, they're called. And they're the most dangerous dickheads on the road. Thankfully, that dickhead on South Australia's roads and Victoria's roads might be taken off the road. Might. Fingers crossed. Have a great weekend. Avoid those dickheads, folks. They are everywhere.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's rock!